All right, well, welcome everyone. On behalf of the American Association of Hispanics in Higher Education, I would like to welcome you to today's Leadership Institute entitled The Intersection of Faculty, Administrative, and Servant Leadership Roles, Lessons Learned and Challenges and Rewards. Being presented by Dr. Azara Santiago Rivera and moderated by Dr. Patricia Arredondo. My name is Kayla and I will be assisting as needed during the session. Please spend a moment to ensure that you have a clean connection. And after the presentation by our esteemed presenters, we will enter a period of participation Q&A. Please feel free to engage with both the presenters and attendees by using the chat function throughout the session. Finally, this is a live meeting and it is being recorded. Thank you to each of you for attending. Now I will turn the session over to today's moderator, Dr. Arredondo.
Would help if I unmuted myself. So, buenas tardes, and I'm delighted to be with all of you this afternoon, whether you're on the East Coast or on the Pacific side of the country. And as Kayla said, I'm Patricia Redondo. I'm here to moderate this Leadership Institute session with Dr. Azara Santiago Rivera. I am the past chair of the board of directors for AAHHE, serving as chair from 2000 to 2020 to 2022. I had to think, yeah, man, she had a long tenure. So, but anyway, they're all smiling at me, so I think they know what I mean. So briefly, the format will be as follows. I'm going to just read a little bit about Dr. Santiago Rivera, and then launch into some interview questions that we've prepared together, so you can get a little bit of an idea of how she thinks about her role in higher education administration in particular, and her role as a servant leader. So just to say, Dr. Azara Santiago Rivera has had a distinguished career in the academy as a tenured faculty member and an administrator. And of course, she's also been a professional association leader, as she is the incoming chair of the board of directors for AAHHE. She's had several administrative roles that I think went out on her bio, serving as an associate dean in the College of Ed at the University of Albany in New York, and Dean of Academic Affairs at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. And we happened to be there together at the same time. And she always enjoys these leadership roles where she can work with faculty and mentor them and bring them along. In terms of her scholarship, she has had multiple interests, continues to publish in the area of working with Latino adults, Latinx adults, looking at depression, bilingual assessments, and she'll talk more about that. And she's a co-author of 3 books, 55 articles, and she's given well over 120 presentations locally, nationally, and internationally. She has served as the president of the National Latinx Psychological Association, and also she is the founding editor of that journal, the Journal of Latinx Psychology, which is one of the most highly ranked journals today, even though it's only about 10 years old. So we're very proud of that journal. And she's the immediate past president of the Latinos Mental Health Association of New Jersey. So we'll start now, and some of the bio items will come up in the interview. So I wanted to say welcome, Azara. I'm going to call her Azara because we know each other so well, so instead of getting all pretentious. So you've had a lengthy career in higher education. What has been your motivation to be in higher ed? And at what point did you get started on your journey?
Well, okay, so I know we only have an hour, and I have a lot to say about that, but I will be brief. You know, as I was putting together some thoughts, for this interview, you know, I began to recall sort of my earliest memories of what has motivated me and really has served as the, the force behind all I do. And it is going back to the days when I was a kid, right? And my mother, which is not unusual, this is not unusual, had a tremendous influence on me. I'm one of three daughters, the oldest. And I recall she would say, the gift that you can give yourself and that will really get you out of any, sort of poverty is the power of education. And so she would say that to me pretty frequently, the importance of education, especially for women at the time. I was born in the 1950s. That's the advent of the civil rights movement. We faced discrimination in schools. We were viewed as less than. I mean, I could go on about that, but that for her, it was the power of education. And I always remember that. And that's what really led me to this career in higher ed, to really provide mentoring and open the doors and the pathways for Latinx individuals pursuing higher education. But later on in life, I had I had these role models. And once again, it was the time. It was the time that I was, it's all about timing. And I want to share that screen with you. I want to share a PowerPoint slide. So let me put that up so you can take a look at these influential people. Can everyone see my screen? I hope so. Patricia, you can see it, yeah?
Just put it in the share screen and the slide mode, the big slide mode. There you go. No, go back one.
Go back one here. There we go.
There it is, yeah.
Yes. So, I put this together a couple of years ago because I wanted to sort of illustrate the individuals who I really cherished, and also who had, these individuals had a powerful impact on me and my pathway with respect to social justice, because all of these individuals, if you think about their focus, it is on social justice. And so, we've got, Rigoberta Menchú, who, led an incredible life and an activist in her own right, who also, as you know, won the, I think it's I'm not sure what year it was, the Nobel Peace Prize in 1992, actually. People like Lolita Lebrón, Dolores Huerta, Cesar Chavez, and of course, Roberto Clemente. All of these individuals influenced me. And I wanted to share that with you because, once again, they were alive and really doing the good work when I was growing up. And I admire them tremendously. So once I got into my career, I guess I'll stop sharing my screen here. Okay. So once I, started my career in higher education, there were also very important people that I had an opportunity to connect with early on in my career. First of all, Patricia Redondo has always been very central in my life, and she really was the person that I went to brainstorm, and to help me figure out, what might be the next steps for me. So she really was influential when I started my career in academia. Others like Edna Acosta Belen, interestingly enough, a distinguished professor at the University at Albany. That's where I started my career as a faculty member. She was also very instrumental and served as a wonderful mentor. She was not a psychologist. She was not a psychologist. The distinguished professor in Latin American, Caribbean, and Latinx studies. But I once again gravitated to her way of approaching the work, and she was one of the few Latina faculty members at the time. So she was also very influential. In terms of psychology, Joseph White, who many of you might know, I know Patricia knew him, he passed away, very influential in my life. So these were individuals who helped continue to motivate me, but also helped me clarify my role as an academic and as an administrator over the years. Once
So
again,
I'm going to pick up on the administrative question, Asada, because you have had many administrative roles, you know, at Albany and Washington and Merrimack College, where you're a professor emerita from Merrimack College in Andover, Massachusetts. And so you've had a number of administrative roles. What do you like about these administrative roles you've held? Because a lot of people just don't want to get near administration.
well,
But you know,
what do I like about these administrative roles? Okay. So I once again, I have to think back at that first sort of opportunity to serve as the associate dean in the School of Education soon after I got tenure, right? It was not before I got tenure, it was soon after. You know, the dean approached me and said, how would you like to serve as the associate dean? You know, it might be good experience for you if you decide to continue this path. And I said yes to that for a couple of reasons. One, it was because I really wanted an opportunity to interact with the wider academic community on that campus. As a faculty member, you know, we live in these little, I want to call it these safe spaces, right? And but it's also very narrow, right? You work with your chair, you work with your students, you work with your colleagues, but that's about all that you do. And there's a good reason for that, because you want to be able to get tenure, right? If there's a tenure system in place. So, you know, you live in that sort of, I don't want to call it bubble, but in a positive way. But that, you know, that's important. That's important. But at the same time, taking on an administrative role, I really did want to interact with the wider community, you know, beyond that department level. And I wanted to work in that system. I wanted to get to know that system. And I wanted to have a broader impact, or at least understand, and I use this phrase, the inner workings of a college, for example, or a school, or even a university. And I wanted to learn more about budgets, what decisions were being made with respect to budgets, how budgets kind of dictate, in many ways, the direction that, let's say, a college or a department or a school or a university takes. So I wanted to understand the dynamics associated with budgets and who made those decisions. So I was curious. I was very curious at the time. Did I have a lot of experience? Absolutely not. Did I gain it over time? Yeah. But it was those were the motivators. And, you know, I always go back, you know, this was a long time ago, right? Things have changed now. I was probably the only you know, person who served in some sort of administrative role who was Latina at that university at the time. And so I wanted to be that person. You know, I wanted to take that risk, even though, you know, sometimes it was hard, right? But those were the motivating forces, Patricia.
you know,
So
that
I like that about taking on, you know, my role as an administrator early on.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a very salient point, Asada, and that is, as Latinas, Latinos were, and if we assume an administrative role, we're often the first ones to step into it. And that has, it's important because it represents, I mean, there's a way, you know, you represent us. On the other, it is a high risk because most people, most faculty, most other administrators have not worked with Latinas and Latinos. So they sometimes don't know how to interact with us. Is that correct? Have you had that experience over the years too?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's like being very careful, you know, very careful, and you can tell, right? You can tell, being careful not to say the wrong thing or ask something of you because it might be perceived as patronizing or sexist or racist. I mean, you know, you're treading. So it's part of my what I enjoyed about administrative work, even fast forward to the most recent, is it was an opportunity to, and I'm going to use this word, educate others. that, really, it was that a few things about, about Latina administrators, for example, Latinx administrators. So it was a positive, sort of approach to it. But, with that came, obviously, some difficult situations, but that's part of the process, right? You learn from those experiences. Yeah.
I was going to ask, in the administrative roles, were there particular outcomes that you believe you accomplished over the last, 30 years that you've been in administration? Could you point to 2 or 3 outcomes?
Well, I'm going to go back for a minute, Patricia, because I want to go, and I will, it does
Sure.
connect with my administrative role. But once again, it connects with it, and I think you'll see how it there is a thread. So my early days at the University at Albany, right, where I got my first administrative position, also tenure, is, I was the first to introduce in the curriculum a course on multicultural counseling. I was the first to do that. It was not in the curriculum. And I got a lot of pushback from that, right? But so it may not have been an administrative role, but it was a leadership. I took an opportunity to introduce a very important content area that was completely overlooked. So why am I saying that? Because I've kept that as central in whatever work I do, whether it's faculty, administration, personally. Servant leadership is this idea of social justice, equity, and inclusion. And it started with that. It started with developing a course for a department for a curriculum. So, that's, I wanted to share that with you, because that provided really a groundwork for me, set the stage for future work. Is one of the more, so when I took on that position at Albany, and I did this at the Chicago school, is I worked with, the appropriate individuals to provide, support for early career faculty, especially those who are not tenured, okay? Found the resources to help them engage in enhancing their teaching strategies, for example. Having, provided opportunities to talk about and to, have presentations or workshops on this whole could be very scary, tenure promotion process, right? Also, this notion of publishing. So the reason why I'm bringing those areas up is because I was affiliated with a research institution. So we wanted to get our faculty of color tenured, right? We wanted to get them tenured. And at the time, there was very little available to the few faculty of color. And so I worked with the dean to develop these initiatives. And I left the institution and continued that, at the Chicago school. But it made a difference because at that time, it was unheard of to provide that level of support. So those I think that's one of the major initiatives for me that really, made a difference. That I thought that I could make a difference was working with the early career faculty, especially faculty of color. The other one, Patricia, as I was putting together my thoughts, and so when I took on positions at the administrative positions at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, as you know, I was hired to build a program at a new campus in Washington, D.C., brand new campus. We had to hire faculty. So I worked very hard with Orlando Taylor at the time to hire faculty of color. And before I left that position, we had a 60% faculty of color on that campus. And it's pretty remarkable that I was lucky that I had a president at the time who supported that. But that was that was important to me, to bring faculty of color to that new campus, especially knowing that you're in Washington, D.C., and the majority of the students were students of color. So those are two major initiatives that I feel good about. Struggled, it was not easy, but once again, it was about, doing the right thing.
There's one other point in what you're saying, though, is all of these administrative roles require quite a bit of collaboration as well as support, particularly from whoever your supervisor is. So at Albany, it was the dean. At the Chicago school, it was Dr. Taylor. So, you can't be, what's the word? You can't be on an island doing this change work as an administrator.
It's thank you for putting that in, providing that perspective. It is about collaboration, and it is about working within the system, right? We're working with a system and finding who your allies are. Yeah. Working very hard to find out who can support, who's in a position of power greater than a dean, right? Mm-hmm. To support, support what you're doing, and also have the data to back it up. You gotta have data. You have to be able to convince them. And the only way to convince them is if you have data, information, and how the university or the college or the school can benefit from it. Because that's really, right? What does that do? It brings in more enrollment. Well, universities want more enrollment, right? Because that generates revenue. You have to be able to provide that data and the rationale, to get the support that you need to do this sort of, change at a campus.
What I like is that you're outlining a methodology that I think administrators or anyone who's on this call, that as an administrator, there is a certain methodology we follow, or we have to follow, in order to get the outcomes that are the best outcomes for the institution. And so data matters, though, as you pointed out, data matters a great deal. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because as an academic, as an administrator, you've also continued to engage in research and publications. And I pointed out you were the founding editor of the Journal of Latinx Psychology. Why do you continue to engage in scholarship? What motivates that?
Well, because the research is so sorely needed so my area is psychology, and there's always room to produce good scholarship on ways in which we can support and improve, in this case, mental health services for our Latinx communities, right? So that motivates me, because we just need to do more and more. And that leads me to what I am doing now. So because it's I've had a long career and working with a number of wonderful people on various research initiatives, once again, to advance an understanding and advanced psychology, ethnic psychology, Latinx psychology. Working with Native American communities, understand, it's all related. But more recently, I've taken on a different, not a research area, but a different interest. Still about Latinx, is in the area of depression and Latinx adults in this case, because what we have discovered is that many of our, the Spanish language continues to be a dominant language, within our communities, and many of these individuals want to seek mental health care, but they're Spanish monolinguals, and the assessments that we use to assess things like depression and other psychological, problems, are measures that were created and normed in English and then translated into Spanish. And so the assumption is that the translation is going to be valid. And that's not what we're discovering. That's not what we're finding. We're finding that if you think about, Spanish speaking countries, there are 21. How many dialects do we have? We have distinct sociopolitical, historical history and, traditions. Even though Spanish language might be the common denominator, there's still clear difference. And that's important. So a measure that's simply translated by, let's say, someone who's bilingual into Spanish is not enough. People conceptualize mental illness differently within our communities, depending on what country of origin, your country of origin. And so I got really interested in that. And now I'm beginning to do more research and more writing about the importance of going beyond a simple translation and considering other factors that have an impact on the way in which we use these measures that are loosely translated to diagnose, because you live with a diagnosis for the rest of your life, right? And then you could be misdiagnosed depending on how people conceptualize, let's say, depression, which, by the way, varies across Latinx communities, depending on the country of origin. It varies. So why not think deeper and unpack that more? So anyway, I've gotten very involved in that because it's an area that's sort of new. We're beginning to understand our communities better and the diversity within. And so not all treatment approaches will be the same across. We shouldn't assume that. That will be the same across all of our various Latinx groups. So
Well, I think
that's what drives me.
Brett, I think your focus is one that clearly needs to be expanded and unpacked, because so often Latinx are seen as this monolithic group. So then okay, you did use this measure and it applies to everyone, whether they're from Guatemala or Colombia or Mexico, lo que sea. And so that's, and then you don't even think about some of all the other within group differences, right? From, educational background to age anyway. So I think what you have is a lifetime's work ahead of you and someone else, your team, because this is deep. This is really needed, but it's a lot. I really like the direction for this scope of research and assessments that you're working on.
Even assessments, it doesn't have to be psychological measures, but just achievement tests, for example.
Yeah, achievement tests,
they've
sure.
also been translated into Spanish, and so we have very little information about the population, the sample used to norm Spanish translation, the outlining the procedures for translation. I mean, it's a big area of research. And we're beginning to see people more interested in this. Certainly. And there are standards associated with the use of translated measures, but people are not
following them,
honoring it. They're not following them. This is the sort of scary part about it.
I have a question that's related to this and the administrative role. Oftentimes administrators, we arrive at our positions, and if we're coming from faculty ranks, I think there is an expectation that even though you are now an administrator, that you maintain your research agenda, or that you feel compelled to maintain your research agenda. What have you seen as the kind of interface with this for yourself, kind of the pressure to continue to publish, even though you've been an administrator for all these years? Can you say a little bit about that to our audience?
Sure, that's a great question, Patricia. I can only share my own experience with that, because I've had to manage that and sort of balance that, navigate that too. once you take on an administrative role in higher education, you typically come from a faculty background, right? So you want to be able to, let's say, if you decide down the road that you no longer want to be an administrator, you want to be able to say, okay, I can go back to my home department, or I can go back to faculty. And then, but, in order to go back to faculty, you have to show that you've been productive as a faculty member. So that's, for me, it was a driving force. I'm not going to give up my research. I may slow down a bit, right? Because other things take priority, but I'm going to continue to publish because I want to be able to go back to faculty at some point, or if I want to, and I want to be accepted by my peers, right? I mean, let's be real, right? You got to. So that's one issue. But the other one is that you want to stay current too, because you've been trained to be a faculty member. You want to stay current in your areas of interest and expertise, and so you should be doing some research. Maybe not at the pace, as I said before, but ways to do that. And I have been so lucky and really thankful that I always worked with graduate students who published with me, right? And that took a little bit of the burden off of me. And then, because we distributed the workload. I'm being very practical, involving other colleagues as well as graduate students for mentoring purposes to engage in research. And I tell you, 90% of my publications, if not more, are with graduate students or other colleagues. So I didn't do this all by myself, right?
Right.
I worked with others. But so that I don't know if I answered your question. But
No, I think, I would say you covered it and clearly brought in the way in conducting research, you have also mentored students, your graduate students that have been on your teams, on your research teams, and then you've published together, which is, again, another way of bringing whether they're Latinx students or other students along to really understand this whole approach to, if they want to stay in the academy or be part of the academy, how this happens.
I do have some publications, co-authors who are not Latinx, and for the same reason, they're very interested in the topic, the subject matter, the research area, but also wanted to learn more. And that too is important, that it's, offering opportunities to a diverse students. Because that too is important, right? It's a learning process for them about our communities, right? And plus you're being inclusive. So to me, that was very important to provide that opportunity.
Well, I have a couple more questions, and again, we're going to have an opportunity to have the audience participate with you, Azara. So you are now stepping into the role of chair in July. You'll become the chair of AAHHE, and you've been involved with AAHHE for a little over 20 years. Tell us about that trajectory and what are your hopes for the association?
Okay, sure. So so going back, I don't think it was 20 years ago, but nonetheless, it was a while back. My first involvement with AAHHE was serving as a committee member on the Outstanding Dissertation Committee, sponsored by ETF. And that was my first real sort of connection with AAHHE. And then I began to learn about the various signature programs AAHHE has. And that, I think that experience was wonderful because it was purposeful. There was a real clear reason to have that outstanding dissertation initiative, to recognize the good work that was being produced by scholars. It was like, wow, why wouldn't you want to be a committee member on that? That was my first introduction. And then over the years, I became the chair of that group, and then I stepped down and so on and so forth. So fast forward, I was re-engaged with AAHHE, serving as the, I guess, chair-elect of the finance committee. And that was 3-4 years ago. And then that led to continuing to be connected and then being elected as the chair-elect. So my term begins in June, I think it's July 1st. It's
July 1st. Yeah.
And so what have I learned over the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years is that, AAHHE has undergone some significant leadership, I want to say, changes in its leadership, its model, its structure, including the management of our various signature programs. But the mission remains the same, right? It's the mission remains the same. The overarching goal, remains the same. There has been some changes in this perspective, though, that there's a real emphasis on inclusion. That's important for any association to thrive, survive, get better, develop, is the importance of inclusion. I want to be able to continue that as the chair, is to really emphasize inclusion, provide opportunities to our early career, mid-career members to get more engaged, because we need that. We need to fuel the association with a different perspective. Well, we're beginning to do that thanks to people like Patricia and others who worked very hard to think about what the next step for AAHHE, or the next step for AAHHE. So that's important, is to continue to support, that. And I mean inclusion in all areas, right? The entire, so from its leadership, board of directors, its signature programs, all of that. So it's inclusion in all areas. AAHHE is in a really good place financially, very good place financially. It's solid. And I say that with 100%, I'm 100% in support of continuing to think about the financial, the stability of the association. What that means is we can't rely on just membership. We have to now think about diversifying our revenue streams. We've got to go out there and find sponsors who will support the initiatives. This is the time to do it, because AAHHE has a track record. So those two things come to mind in terms of what I would, I want to continue supporting, and the next sort of step. We will engage with strategic planning very soon. That will also provide more insight into how we can continue to grow this great association. It's because it is the only one of its kind in this country.
Well, the other points that you're making, Azara, I just want to point out, I think that it's like when you want to know the inner workings of a university, you stepped into that assistant dean or associate dean role. I think the same thing applies to AAHHE. If one wants to know the inner workings, then you become a committee member first. And, you see how things operate, and whether you're on the membership committee or the awards committee. And then, you can think about being a board member. And I would say that all of this, these systems require, outreach. Not everyone's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, would you like to be on a committee? But there are calls for committee members on, at different times of year. Azara will be the third woman chair of the board of AAHHE, which was I think started in 2004, so it's only 20 years old, coming up on 20. So we had Joanne Canales and myself, and then now Azara. And I think I just want to also underscore what Azara said in terms of representation, because I know oftentimes people think of AAHHE as I guess historically it was led by people from Mexican American heritage, and we really have to diversify the membership, the leadership. So Azara will be the first person of Puerto Rican heritage, Puerto Rican Cuban heritage, right? To be the chair of the board. So again, I say that very deliberately because we really have to do the work together to create this inclusion. And so understanding that, just want to shift now to a couple of questions about your personal life, because we all have those and we kind of only show our professional lives on these interviews and stuff. So you grew up in Puerto Rico, you went to the university, Inter-American University there for your undergraduate and your bachelor's degree, and then you earned your PhD at Wayne State in Detroit. That was your trajectories. So how do you, what can you say about you talked at the beginning about your mother being instrumental in, emphasizing education for her daughters. How have you blended your family and into your personal, into your professional experiences? How has that worked for you?
Okay. Yeah, I have 3 daughters and I have 5 grandchildren, and I'm soon to be a grandmother to a 6th child. My youngest daughter is pregnant, so she yeah, 6 grandchildren. I love it. Anyway, it's hard to kind of even describe how I've been able to manage, have my family, my personal life with my profession. It is about balance, and it's I struggled with that, certainly, to be able to maintain a balance. Our work, our work is as a major part of our identity, right? It's a huge part of our identity. And sometimes it can take priority, and it often does, especially when you're starting out in your career. It is priority if you want, if you have this goal in mind. So having a supportive sort of infrastructure, family structure, including friends, I think that you need that kind of support. To me, I have a lot of extended family that I consider mi familia. Besides my immediate family. So it is about surrounding yourself with people who support you.
You want to show your slide?
Oh yeah, I am, and I have to say that and I will do that, because thank you for the reminder. Is I've worked very hard to maintain that balance, and I've had to make some sacrifices along the way to be able to maintain that balance. Right? Because to me, my family is very important. So I was very careful with, searching for opportunities for advancement, because my family is just as important as my professional life. So I was very careful with that. The other thing is I've always had a very supportive spouse. That's important too, to have the support of a spouse, a partner who understands that it's important to keep that balance, but also can take the lead in certain things when you're in the midst of writing a paper and you have 5 committees you have to attend to before the day is over, that sort of thing. So I once again, it is about finding a balance, and it's not easy. The balance isn't always balanced, right? But if you keep your eye, or I guess not the eye, but if you keep yourself focused, so that's that. Yeah, that's how I've been able to kind of work it out. But I do want to share my slide, and then I can talk a little bit about who's in. Okay, hold on.
And after this, we'll do about 10 minutes of Q&A. Okay, I think we have after this slide.
Okay, so let me do
slide 2, or the big one.
Let's see where it is. Oops, sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, I hope everyone can see this. So when I put it together, it's interesting. I put my immediate family at the center. That's the picture of all of us. I call it my clan. And then I have it's a collage of not only family members, immediate family members, extended family members, friends, colleagues, and a lot of graduate students. I have photos of, I think, every stage of my career. There's a photo of me and my graduate students. I just like, wow, I didn't even think that I had done this until I looked at the whole picture. So this really represents who I am. What is curious about this for me, as I look, there is diversity among this group, big time. From my immediate family to the individuals I've had the honor of mentoring and working with. At the bottom of this photograph, there are two pictures here. One is with Gail Morse. I think Patricia knows who she is. And the Akwesasne women, the women of Akwesasne, the Mohawk women of Akwesasne, who introduced me to their culture and embraced me, and to me, their family. So anyway, this is just a collage of I guess important people in my life. I don't know if that answers your question or if anybody really wants to see this, but that's it. That's it.
No, it's good. No, it's a wonderful collage. Yeah, I think it's. Asada, one quick question: who's the married couple in the middle?
The married in the up here, just on the top.
Yes,
those are my parents. Those are my
that's
parents.
what. Okay, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of beauty in these images, and obviously a lot of joy in these images. So we're going to take the last 10 minutes to invite those of you who are on the call to ask a question, make a statement, to engage with Asada. So just if you can unmute yourself, raise your hand when you're ready, and we'll call on you, and Kayla can unmute you. Kayla, you will do the unmuting.
Yes, I think people should be able to unmute themselves.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I think Luz unmuted herself. So go. Welcome, Luz. And tell us where you are, and what you do. Okay.
I'm Luz Moreno, and I'm original from Colombia, South America. And I'm right here at the Southeast New Mexico College in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And right now I'm serving as, and this is very recently, I'm serving as the director of the Learning Technology Center. But the Learning Technology Center right here at the Southeast New Mexico College is in charge of all our distance education. So I have to wear different roles during the day. I serve as the Distance Advisory Committee Chair. I also serve as the Quality Merit Coordinator in our initiative of improving our online courses, the quality of our online courses, besides also kind of brainstorming different strategies and different projects that the center can start to improve the services to the students, the services to our faculty. And that was one of the reasons that I was looking into the leadership workshops, and I received an email from the leadership academy, and I enrolled into the workshop because I wanted to find inspirations from another Latinos in that role, and I wanted to hear directly from them and their experiences and all for putting in some way the challenges to be successful in those roles that we are in with the responsibility to make decisions, but also to have good outcomes. Let's put it in that way. So that was one of the reasons that I end up on your presentation. And I was listening to Dr. Rivera, and I was confirming from her and from her experience some of challenges that I already have encountered in serving in my different roles, and I think that I'm looking for examples and kind of suggestions to overcome those barriers that we Latinos have when we are in those roles. There is always that perception that probably we cannot perform at that level, or that our ideas are sometimes they don't take it as a valid, or that they can take the institution or the department to be in a better place.
Asana, thank you, Luz, for sharing that context, and you've got a lot of hats you're wearing. So Asana, you're unmuted. You can comment briefly.
Wow, yes. Well, my first sort of response, Luz, is that you are wearing multiple hats. Yeah. So I hear you that it's difficult to manage all those roles that you have. Sounds like. So I always go back to it's the story. The stories, although the positions are different, the stories, they're so similar across the right. It's not having the adequate support, the lack of support, the not validating your expertise.
Exactly.
It's managing, being able to navigate a system that you might not be very familiar with, not fitting in either, not fitting into the system. These are pretty common experience that many of us have, and there is no easy solution to this by all means, right? Each person and each institution, each situation is unique in its own right. But there are some key things that are essential, and that's one is having a small support network, right? That to me is so important, and this doesn't have to be, these could be individuals in your institution or not. They could be external, but to find just a small group of people that you trust, that you can talk through difficult situations. Okay, that's one piece. In addition to that is also looking for look for a mentor. And that's a more formal relationship. The network I'm talking about is more informal, right? It's like a sounding board. But your mentor can serve as a sounding board, but it's that role is very specific to helping you enhance your skill set, maybe. The other thing is a coach. I really think that identifying a coach that's even more formal can help enhance your specific skills that you have. So that's very practical and pragmatic. But I believe that those things matter. Those different things matter. Anyway, I don't know if I answered the question, if that provides any additional sort of suggestions, guidance, but but those would be the.
Yeah, I want to intervene here so we can have time for another comment or question. Is that being practical is, I like what Azara said, we have to be very practical because it's easy to get, confused, but, what's the problem? Let's solve it. So let's be practical here. So thanks so much, Luz. Shane, come on in and join the conversation.
Hi, thank you so much. This has been really enlightening, and Dr. Santiago Rivera, your answers were so well organized and so thoughtful to the questions, and I thought I can see why you've been such a success in your life. And so I am a professor in communication at California State University, Fresno State. And my other role on campus is that I'm a coordinator of allyship. And so I run a program to help faculty better understand how they can reduce microaggressions within the workspaces that they're in, as well as now build spaces of inclusion. And so I am 50 years old, and so I've come up in the academy at a time that has been post-affirmative action. And so as a student and as a young professional, I witnessed a lot of people of color who were in positions that credited their position to being a part of affirmative action, that it opened up a wave to allow them in, that it was a different time. And then in this post-affirmative action time, things became a little bit more volatile. And then today, now we're in a very, I feel like, struggling time where, depending upon the room that you're in, people can be quite hostile about inclusion or equity or diversity. I was just in a meeting yesterday where I was accused of writing a job call that would attract faculty of color. And I thought, what world am I in? Of course I am, but and his position was it was excluding people like him, white straight men. So, and he had support in the room. It was bizarre. But it just showed me like how volatile things are right now. So my question, one is, what leadership quality do you think that Latinx administrators need that stands the test of time? And then also, what leadership quality do you think that new Latinx administrators need right now in this current time?
Yeah, great question, Shane. Well, so I just want to comment on this because the backlash is so obvious, right? And it's every day there's something that we hear, see, read about, and it takes many forms. The bottom line, it's still racist. It's still racist. I think what could stand over time is your persistence, Shane, your persistence. Because this too shall pass. What's happening now will pass. We are in the midst of it, but we do need to be persistent and to be flexible. We do need that. And I still believe, Shane, that we have to work within the system. We have to be able to work within the system. Now we're gonna get that kind of, I don't even know what to describe it, but, based on your examples, like it's like I can't believe this is still happening. That's the reality that we're living in right now, right? So persistence and patience and flexibility and continue to work within the system. What we need right now, I don't know, what we need right now are those things too, Patricia. I don't know if you have anything you'd want to add to this or a different perspective. But
I think you're.
And I still think we have to remain positive. We have to go into this positive. So either not reacting, and if we do react, that there's a positive spin to it, because we need those people still to be able to create the change, because they're not going to go away overnight. So that's my concern.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said is right on the mark. There's we're older than you, Shane. So I've lived through all of these ups and downs. Thank you, Samantha. And would say that we are in a very period that's challenging higher education. And fortunately, you're in California, not Florida. and for, you know, for better or for worse. So I think about integrity as still being an essential leadership quality. And, you know, Asada talked about remaining positive, but to also maintain your ethics, your integrity, because those are not qualities, leadership qualities that any of us would sacrifice. So that, you know, if you want to be consistent and persistent, as she also mentioned. And I think just one other point I would say in terms of leadership qualities, when you are in these roles where you know, it's quasi administrator or faculty person is always in some ways a leader, is remember that you represent the institution. So this is not personal. I mean, it's personal, but that's not the voice that's coming into the conversation. This is about the institution, the students, you know, the future of the institution in a multicultural society. So that's the other comment I'd make. I know Freddie's still on, and I know Samantha left. Freddie, did you have any comment to make or ask or something like that?
I don't have any comments. I just want to thank you all for your guys' time, for letting us be part of the leadership. Yes,
Where are you, Freddie?
I'm also at Southeast New Mexico College in New Mexico. So I also work with Luz Moreno in the Learning Technology Center. So as she mentioned, the situation that we're currently having here, and probably with this leadership, give us a little bit more insight on how we could proceed with our situation.
Well, I'm so glad you attended. So to all of you, and I Shane, thank you for your example, and that gave us a great opportunity to focus on qualities, leadership qualities. Yeah. So I want to thank Dr. Azara Santiago Rivera for being part of this Leadership Institute. Azara, any closing thoughts? And we'll end it.
I just thank you for attending. It was great to have a conversation with you, and I hope to see you at the conference. I don't know if you're planning to attend, but we certainly can reconnect there if you will be there.
Great. Oh, I see them shaking their heads, so they will be at the conference. Yay.
Well, look for
Okay.
me. I'll be running around, but if you see me, stop me.
It'll be great to meet you all there. Yeah. Okay. Well, have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Rest of
You're
the
very
week.
welcome.
Okay.
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 Bye-bye.
Hasta luego. Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Kayla. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kayla. It went well, I thought.
Have a good day.
You too.